ladies and gents, and welcome back to EP9 Storytime. I finally got on the bandwagon and made a Reddit account so that I can read you some No Sleep and later on some Let's Not Meet and who knows what other kinds of stories. This one is called The Eyes Did It. So, in writing this, I understand nobody is going to believe me. Every time I say what I'm about to write, either everyone thinks I'm a little nuts or just extremely like M. Night Shyamalan movies. Here it goes. I actually see dead people. Haha, right? But it's true. It freaks me out every time it happens. I never know what to do. Then I start having an anxiety attack. Which the bastards love, by the way. I decided to finally post something on here because, well, something bad has happened and I don't know what else to do. For over 10 years now, I've been seeing these people. Every experience usually only lasts about 10 seconds. The souls don't really notice me at first. But I sure do notice them. It starts with a metallic taste in my mouth. The taste is so unique, strangely not unpleasant on its own. Their eyes, blood-soaked eyes, usually staring right at the closest woman in the room. I know, strange, right? I struggled to work this one out myself. The best conclusion I can come up to is that the souls left behind are evil men. I have no idea, though. If there are no women around, then they always stare directly into the ceiling. That is, until they can sense me. Once the souls notice my presence, then the eyes begin to dart rapidly for 2 seconds, until they stop and look directly into mine. This is usually the time where I begin to flood my system with prescription psych medicine. It doesn't do shit to the spirits, but it gives me something to focus on other than those deep, floating red eyes. The next bit is always terrifying. First, I always hear the distant scream. Then it gets closer, and closer, and closer, until it's screaming right into my ear. Then boom, it's over. No eyes, no screaming, just a young guy freaking the fuck out in the corner of a room somewhere. When those occurrences first happened, people would see me frozen in pure terror and begin to come over and help me. If people do this, the screams, they don't go away. The soul's eyes, piercing, actually begin to feel like they are burning into my skin. If I keep calm and ensure the people around me that I'm okay, the screams stop again. At this point, you're probably thinking the exact same thing everyone else tends to think. I'm a schizophrenic. Well, I thought so too for a long time. 2 days after my 15th birthday, I had decided that I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick of seeing these beings. I had decided to take my own life. I mean, shit, I might actually get to meet some of those eyes on the other side. So I went up 8 stories to meet my maker. I was standing on the roof of our small town's tallest building. the wind blowing through my hair, sweat dripping off my forehead. I decided to turn around and look over my town for a final time. When I did, hundreds of red and black eyes were watching me, taunting me, urging me to jump, so I did. As you can probably tell, I'm not dead. I wasn't saved miraculously either. Nope, turns out there is a kind of art to killing yourself. Well, at least when jumping off a roof. I'm truly fucked up now. I need a full-time nurse to do everything for me. A machine helps me breathe, and what I'm typing now is voice to text. Hopefully one of my chat room friends has helped me to polish it up. It's been 6 years since my attempt, and the strangest thing happened after my incident. My ability to see spirits left me. No longer did I see the eyes, hear the screams. For almost 6 years I've been in pure, immobile pain, but to me, it is all worth it to lose the sight of those terrifying monsters. That was until last night. I live in a house alone now. No family or friends, except online. And I have a carer here every day. She's beautiful. About 4 years older than me, she does literally everything for me. When I say everything, I mean fucking everything. I'll admit it, I love her, or did. She is everything to me. I needed her to be mine. I can't do shit in this state. You have to understand that. Ava was the best thing that could have happened to me. We would joke around constantly. She had this smile that even on my worst days would cheer me up. But my love for her was pointless. She didn't feel the same way, and she never would. I was her job. I was her income. I'm essentially a human vegetable. Hi, Jack here, the online friend Thomas was talking about. Tom had this part scratched out when he sent it over to me last night, but I decided to leave it in. Yesterday, she foolishly told me something. She had found a boyfriend hundreds of miles away. She was going to leave me. Fuck. She was going to leave me. I wasn't going to let that happen. Well, my friends, as she was telling me this news, they came back. 2 eyes floating in the corner of the room, staring at Ava, wanting her just as I did. Listen, Tom, I know this is going to be hard, Ava was saying. But I didn't care. I knew she would leave me. The eyes, they weren't evil. They wanted to help me. You don't want her to go, do you, Tom? They said. We can help. We can have her join us and be with you. I asked for their help and they did. Now Ava is here, with me, safe and sound. She'll never leave me. I just needed you all to know that the eyes did it. The eyes did it, not me, the eyes. This is where the recording cuts off. Tom was found dead last night, along with his carer. He had been dead for 2 days, unable to move, therefore unable to feed himself. He could have called someone, but all he did was post on Ava's social media accounts. Poison was found in Ava's system after the autopsy. I can't believe Tom, an innocent guy I always played games with online, could do something like this. I actually truly couldn't believe he could do this. Tom couldn't get his hands on this poison. Fuck, he couldn't even get a hold of a controller. He used a special one. This gets even weirder. There was a constant recording in Tom's room in case he seized up in the nighttime and needed assistance. And the camera footage when Ava is telling Tom she has to leave. He's staring directly into the corner of the room, looking scared out of his mind. The footage then goes to black. No way Tom could have gotten controls of that camera. I don't know. You decide what you want to believe. Hey, I'm Sarah, and 2 years ago, I made a huge mistake. Perhaps the biggest mistake of my life. I was 14. Me and my brother Nico were staying in a hotel in California with our family. We got bored, so long story short, we saw some videos online and decided to play the elevator game. At the time, we were young and dumb, so therefore we didn't know not to mess with these things. Our cousin Jenny went first. We played alone to follow the rules, while me and Nico waited at the bottom. We waited about 10 minutes until she got back down to the first floor. She said that every floor she went to, people were getting on and off, making her unable to complete her turn. Nico went next. He finished faster than Jenny and was in and out in 5 minutes. He said that the woman entered on the 5th floor and he went to the other world, but my brother's a compulsive liar. Next, it was my go, and even though I was a huge skeptic, I have to admit I was almost nervous. I stepped into the elevator, and as I watched the doors close, my brother said to me through the gap, "See you in 5 minutes." As he could tell, I was getting nervous. He knew that I knew he was a believer, so him saying that calmed me down a bit. I got through the first 5 steps without anyone boarding the elevator, so I took a deep breath and pressed the button for the 5th floor, praying to God that the woman doesn't enter the elevator. The doors creaked open on the 5th floor, and they were open for about 5 seconds. Nobody was entering. When the door started to close, I thought I was safe. Boy, was I wrong. All of a sudden, the door started to open back up, still on the 5th floor. My heart was racing. Then I saw a woman's body walking towards the elevator. I instantly looked down at the ground and didn't see her face. From what I saw, this woman was incredibly tall. She must have been at least 1.5 feet taller than me. She was wearing a long, dirty white dress, had dirty bare feet. I cautiously pressed the button to the 1st floor and the doors began to close. I felt like I was in a horror movie. There was no way this is real. This isn't real. This isn't real, I muttered to myself. My back was facing the woman and I was looking down, but uncoils still see her dirty feet. I kept muttering to myself until this woman took one large stride towards me. "I'm sorry, my love. Did you say something?" she said sternly. I stood there with my eyes closed in silence. I could feel the elevator moving. Only it wasn't going down. It was ascending, supposedly to the other world. At that point, I wouldn't have been mad if Nico and Jenny popped out saying it was a prank or something. The woman stood there hovering over me until we got up to the 10th floor. When the doors opened, she stood there for a few seconds, then quickly left. I couldn't believe what was happening. After the creepy lady was gone, I opened my eyes and looked out of the elevator. I was staring out of a gigantic glass window. I stepped out of the elevator to get a closer look. All I could see was maybe 3 street lights and a large red cross in the distance. Just like all the websites said. No people, no cars, just me. I was all alone. I was in another world. In my moment of shock, I heard a big bang which snapped me back into reality. I turned around to see that the elevator doors had shut. I ran over to them and rapidly pressed the button to open them. It didn't work. I sat there and cried for hours. I cried myself to sleep. I woke up to an eerie noise. It was almost like the sound of wind singing. I crawled over to the big glass window and looked down into the very dimly lit streets. In fact, I wouldn't describe them as lit at all. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to all the darkness. I couldn't see much, but what I did see creeped me out big time. I could see shadows gliding up and down the road. All of them were gliding in the same direction. They were going towards something. I looked over to the right-hand side of the window, and what I saw is hard to explain. It was another shadow, only it was bigger than the other shadows, and sat on a throne on the hill. It's like all the other shadows were worshipping it or something. Around the big shadow there were smaller, but still big shadows. They looked like guards. For the next few days I did anything I could think of to get those elevator doors to open, but they just wouldn't budge. Every night the shadows did their same little parade ritual thing and sung and worshipped their leader. I remember crying every night at the beginning. All because I was alone. Until I made a friend. This one is called My Husband is Driving, but Won't Stop Staring at Me. We finally had 2 weeks off at the same time, Richard and I. Let's go on a round trip. Somewhere random. Somewhere we haven't been yet. What do you think? I wanted to leave enough mystery for this idea to be intriguing, and went out over the desire to spend our hard-earned vacation time at home doing spring cleaning. Well, Richard pursed his lips as he weighed his options. I was the spontaneous one, while he tended to opt for more responsible ways to spend time. I put on my best combination of alluring smile and pleading eyes. Come on, please. I promise when we come back we can spend the entire rest of the time cleaning every nook and cranny of this place. How about up to Maine? Richard cracked a grin. 3 days later, we had an Airbnb booked and the SUV packed. It had been so long since we had been able to take a trip like this together. I was determined to make the most of it. I spent the better part of the workday after the decision to go researching small seaside towns and activities. The drive was estimated to be just over 7 hours, according to Google Maps. While we had a bunch of podcasts and games ready to go, I knew I was going to succumb to my desire to nap on long car rides. There's something about the sound of tires on the highway and the purr of the engine that soothes me. Just as I expected, I fell asleep about 4 hours in. A blaring horn startled me awake, with a semi-trailer flying past my window to confirm the source. I rubbed my eyes. How long was I out? I looked for the sun to see if I could the time. I learned in Girl Scouts how to tell the time from the stars, but I can't seem to find the sun. Must be about to set, huh? My stomach growled, so I turned my attention to my purse at my feet. "Are you hungry?" I asked as I dug around in search of a snack. "All I have in here are Mentos, and I have no idea how old these are." "Is there an exit soon? We can pull off for some food." I looked back out my window to check for one of those huge blue signs listing restaurants or rest stops. "Hun, what do you—" I hadn't looked at Richard yet. When I glanced at him, just then I noticed he was staring at me. Right at me. Just his head was turned 90 degrees, a smile frozen on his face. "What?" I asked, a smirk creeping to the side of my mouth. We used to do this all the time, playing driver's chicken. It didn't take long for my smile to wear away, though. This wasn't chicken. Normally, whoever was driving would always glance back at the road or give up after about 5 seconds. Richard wasn't giving up. "Richard, look at the road!" I whipped my head from his eerie smiling face to the road in front of us. "You're going 80 miles an hour. This isn't funny. You're going to get us killed." I screamed as a red Honda changed lanes right in front of us. Somehow Richard smoothly changed lanes right around the car and back. I was looking right into his eyes that whole time. He hadn't turned away from me. Not to look in the rearview mirror, not to look out the front windshield, not even a little to the side. His eyes were locked onto mine, his smile never faltering. The weirdest thing was how his eyes looked. They were always my favorite feature of Richard's. Deep, mossy green with perfectly long eyelashes. But now they seemed darker somehow. It took me a few moments to realize that it was his pupils. They were slowly dilating, swallowing more and more of his iris into darkness. That was an hour ago. No matter what I did, he would not look back at the road. I tried to turn his head, scream, plead, cry. I even slapped him at one point, hoping to break him out of whatever trance this was. The only time he moved was when I tried to grab the wheel from him. I won't try that again. Even though Richard won't look at the road, he never hits anything or anyone. We're still driving north, and I don't know if he's going to stop when we reach our vacation town. I don't know if he's even my Richard anymore. I don't know if I can call the cops. Will they believe me? I'll sound insane telling them my husband, whose eyes are completely black now, won't stop driving the car and is just staring at me. Maybe I should try that anyway. I don't know. I do know one thing, though. We have to run out of gas eventually. And the last story. My son asked me to check the closet for monsters. I didn't need to. I recently went through a pretty nasty divorce, but I got the only thing that mattered out of it. Full custody of my 4-year-old son. Lost nearly everything else in the process, so we had to relocate to a new house with barely any luggage or furniture. Truly a fresh new start. I heard him call for me during our first night at our new home. It was a little after midnight, I think. I went to check on him to see what was wrong and sat by his bedside. He was wide awake and asked me to check the closet for monsters, which wasn't surprising given the circumstances. He's still just a kid, and without taking into account all the crap he's been through thanks to my shitty marriage, moving to an unfamiliar, barely furnished home must be a lot to take in for someone his age. And you know what they say, that your brain always stays half awake when you're sleeping in a new environment, right? That's all pretty much what went through my mind in a flash as soon as my son spoke. It was no big deal. It was all normal, I thought. But something else almost immediately clicked inside my brain. Before I even got to look where my son had pointed when he made his innocent request. Something was wrong. I turned my head and looked, and it took everything I had in me not to give in to fear and terror, all for the sake of my son. When you become a parent, you have to protect your children no matter what, always putting yourself in harm's way if necessary and spare them any and all kinds of things that might hurt them. This is why I didn't freak out. I couldn't. Not when we had barely started our new life. I had to protect him, and at that point in time, as I sat on his bed, I only knew one thing. We had to leave the room. We had to leave the house immediately. "All right, champ, of course," I said, faking bravery. Then I made a request of my own as I lowered my voice and got closer to him. "Hey, how about you step outside for a minute? If there's a monster in there, I'll have to kick its butt all over your room." He chuckled and said okay. I made sure to put some extra emphasis on the word butt because it's something that always cracks him up when I say it. Fortunately, he got stuck on that and not the fact that I was indirectly admitting to the possibility of there actually being a monster. As soon as he left the room, my mind raced as it started to put together the best and most efficient route to take him out of the house while picking my car keys and phone on our way out. When I heard the closet doors slowly creaking open behind me, I knew it was time to go. I jumped out of the bed, exited the room, grabbed my son. We were out of the door and inside the car and moving in under a minute. I told him I couldn't sleep, so we were going out for some ice cream to celebrate. He was a little taken aback and asked, "Celebrate what?" To which I replied, "Just us two together. I love you, buddy." It was by no means a lie, but I just had to make sure that he was all right and wouldn't think of anything else as we literally fled our new home. As I mentioned earlier, my house was a new environment for the two of us. I'd been there a couple times before, cleaned it all up by myself and assembled what little furniture we had. So I knew for a fact what belonged there and what didn't. And I know his room didn't have a closet. Alright guys, thanks for listening. I'll keep looking for more stories. Be sure to submit them. And y'all have a great day. Bye.